What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on the channel, and in this video I'm going to be talking about some stuff with the NFL and the NBA. And I wanted to start out very quickly with the scouting combine that happened over the weekend, because we saw former Texas Longhorns wide receiver Xavier Worthy break the record for the fastest time in the 40-yard dash. It was previously held by John Ross, who played college football at Washington, drafted by the Bengals, was a top 10 pick at number 7 overall, I believe. Didn't really pan out in the NFL, but we saw Xavier Worthy break this record, and so I just wanted to shout out him really quickly, because that was a pretty cool thing to see, and hopefully his speed at the combine can translate to the NFL, because like I just said, we usually don't always see that kind of speed translate to the pros. I mean, there's exceptions, like Tyreek Hill is the main one, obviously, but shout out to Xavier Worthy. That's a really big accomplishment, and wishing him best of luck going forward with the draft. But I wanted to start out with the NFL because it's a really, really big time in the league. We see players are getting released all over the place because teams are trying to get under the salary cap to improve their team for next season. And one of the most notable releases happened earlier this week when the Broncos decided to release quarterback Russell Wilson. And this may have come as a surprise to some people. It might not have, because the move now means that they have $85 million in dead cap money. I believe it's the largest cap hit in the NFL right now. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. And when you look at this situation in Denver concerning Russell Wilson, it really has to be considered one of the worst trades in the history of sports, because when you look at what Russell Wilson was able to do with the Seahawks, he took them to 2 Super Bowls, won one against the Broncos, and then the next year they should have won against the Patriots, if not for arguably the worst call in NFL history, play call I should say, by not giving it to Marshawn Lynch on the 1-yard line, and they tried to throw a slant to Ricardo Lockett that got intercepted by Malcolm Butler. Arguably the most clutch play in the history of the NFL, because it's so hard to get an interception in that spot, and he was able to do it. And after that Super Bowl, the Seahawks were never really the same. Russell Wilson was the same. He still had great individual seasons, and he was considered to be one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the league, because he never received a single MVP vote, even for all his heroics that he was able to do and accomplish with the Seahawks. But their defense got older. Guys like Cam Chancellor, guys like Richard Sherman, that Legion of Boom defense that made them so good, they were getting older, so they left the team. And then eventually, I think the relationship between Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll began to sour, and that's a big reason why he ended up being traded from the Seahawks. And guys like Marshawn Lynch also left too. He went to the Raiders to play in Oakland, where they used to be, but that's his hometown. And so it was really the end of the Seahawks as we knew and loved them. And so he gets traded to Denver, and he's expected to do basically everything he was doing in Seattle, except with a better roster. Denver had one of the best defenses in the league for a very long time, even though they just didn't get the quarterback right. They had guys like Brock Osweiler, Drew Lock, Trevor Siemian. Nobody could come in and fill that void left by Peyton Manning. And so they bring in Russell Wilson, and the whole thing is just a disaster. They start out the season, first game of the season, the NFL script writers couldn't have done it any better. Russell Wilson goes back to Seattle for his Broncos debut with head coach Nathaniel Hackett, who ended up being not a very good coach. But they go back to Seattle and they lose in really embarrassing fashion. They mismanage the clock. They can't win the game, and then that should have been sort of an indication that maybe Nathaniel Hackett and even Russell Wilson was not going to work out in Denver, because that whole entire season they just could not get their offense going. I believe Wilson's record that year was 4-11 when he was in as a starter for the Broncos, and then the next year wasn't any better. And then it was supposed to be better because they brought in Sean Payton, a guy who's considered to be an offensive guru. He obviously had many great seasons in New Orleans coaching Drew Brees and the Saints, and they bring him in, and it's more of the same. They can't get their offense going. Their defense turns into one of the worst units in the league. I believe there was a point in the season when they were the lowest scoring defense in terms of points allowed, and then they were giving up just so many yards. So the Broncos as a whole looked like a disaster, and then they eventually kind of turned it around a little bit. They went on a nice little winning streak, but they still had those moments, those games that they could have back, like the Jets game when Wilson fumbled on the final possession and the Jets took it for a scoop and score. Other games like the Lions game when they just got completely embarrassed, and then there was that argument on the sideline between Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, and that might have been the indication that Wilson's time in Denver was coming to an end, because Sean Payton was not vibing with Russell Wilson. They were not getting along, and he was really putting the blame on Russell for a lot of what was going on with the Broncos, not really taking accountability there. So, I mean, it's not too surprising that they released him, but that $85 million in dead cap money, that's just so much money to have to be able to absorb. And when you look at where the Broncos are in terms of draft position, they aren't really in position to take some of the top guys like a Caleb Williams or a Jaden Daniels or a Drake May. So they're going to have to find a solution at quarterback because their division really isn't going to get much easier either. The Chiefs, back-to-back Super Bowl champions, you still have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid to worry about. And I think the Chargers, I say this every year, everybody says it every year, I think the Chargers are going to be a lot better this year. I love the Jim Harbaugh hiring. I think he is perfect for that job. He has a lot of head coaching experience, real head coaching experience. He took a team to the Super Bowl in the 49ers. He did great stuff at Michigan, obviously winning the national championship last year. So I expect the Chargers to be a lot better. And then you never know with the Raiders. I mean, Antonio Pierce, guys really seem to like him, so maybe they'll play really hard next year. They'll be a little bit better too. I don't really know what they're doing at quarterback either, but I mean, the AFC West, it's not an easy division. I'm wishing the best for Russell Wilson in terms of the rest of his career. I'm wondering which team is going to take a chance on him because after what he did in Denver, a large sample size, 11-19 record, 2 seasons of play, it's not really looking very good in terms of teams jumping in on Russell Wilson. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think about the Broncos releasing Russell Wilson. Do you think it was deserved? Are you surprised by it? And let me know what you think about some of the guys that are being released really throughout the week because teams, like I said, teams are trying to clear that salary cap space. You have guys who aren't getting franchise tagged, really big names who are going to be free agents like Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard. I believe Josh Jacobs is in that running back group. Jordan Poyer, all-pro safety for the Bills, just got released a few minutes ago before I started recording this. So free agency is going to be really fun this offseason because there's a lot of big names that are available. The game may not match the name anymore, but the names are there. And so guys like Jamal Adams too, Quandre Diggs with the Seahawks. So yeah, going to be a really interesting free agency period. But that's all I wanted to talk about with the NFL. And I want to switch over to the NBA. And I want to talk about one team in particular surrounding the NBA, and I want to talk about the Boston Celtics. And so the Celtics have been, without a doubt, the best team in the NBA all season. Their record is really good. They're at the top of the East standings. They're going to finish with the number 1 seed. I just don't think there's enough ground for Milwaukee or Cleveland to catch them. They just recently went on an 11-game winning streak that got snapped by the Cavs last night, and that's where I want to go because Boston, you're going into Cleveland, you're on a 11-game winning streak, and you're playing a Cavs team that's missing Donovan Mitchell, and really, you have them dead to rights in the fourth quarter. You're up by 22 points. Jason Tatum had an incredible first half in this game, 22 points, so it's really not looking like the Cavs are going to put up much of a fight here. But then, all of a sudden, the game gets really close. The fourth quarter rolls around, and the Cavs start to make a really big run, led by Dean Wade, who had a very, very good game, scored over 20 points, made very clutch three-pointers, made clutch baskets in general throughout the game. And I wanted to talk about this game because it is just a regular season game. I don't think it's really that much of an indication of anything too serious concerning the Celtics because obviously I think if they were to play the Cavs in a playoff series, I think they would beat them. But really, it's more, I just want to get into the Celtics' late game offense when games are really tight and you need buckets, and you need buckets fast because I wanted to talk about it because I think the Celtics offense, they're still running into the same problems that they ran into in 2022 and last year against the Heat. I think their late game offense is entirely too predictable. Obviously, we all know the Celtics are a team, they love to shoot three-pointers. They shoot more threes than anybody in the league, and I think they make more than anybody in the league. So that's their offense, that's their bread and butter. When the threes are falling, they're impossible to beat, and when they don't make them, they're beatable, they're vulnerable. And it's not just that, it's just, when I say their offense is predictable, it's, you know, it's either going to be drive and kick, or it's going to be chuck up threes in the clutch, or Tatum and Brown iso ball late in the clutch. And that's not going to get it done in playoff games, close playoff games in the later rounds. It'll work maybe in the first round depending on who they play. But if they run into a team like Miami in the first round, a team with Eric Spoelstra at the head coach, who is, let's face it, at this point, he's the best coach in the NBA. I've said this before. He can coach a team of undrafted players to the finals if he wanted to. And so when you run into smarter teams who know how to play physical. They know how to get in your grill. They know how to lock you down. They know what you want to run. Because that's another thing about the Celtics. They love to start out games fast. They want to get out to big leads and put the other team in a position to where they start panicking, and then they try to match their game. So like the Warriors on Sunday, they play Golden State on Sunday. They get out to a super fast start. Jaylen Brown has 19 points in the first quarter. They're making nearly every shot they put up, and that's really their formula to winning, and that's why teams really can't beat the Celtics, because they get out to really fast starts. But I think if you're able to weather the storm after a fast start, get back into the game, make it close, and then change the pace of the game, because the Celtics also like to play really fast. And so if you can make it a slower paced, playoff-like feel, I think that's when they're most vulnerable, because I really don't think their offense is polished enough to execute in spots like that. And so I think if you're playing a team like the Bucks, who look really good right now, say all you want about Doc Rivers, make all the Doc Rivers jokes, the Bucks look really good right now. It's unfortunate that Giannis is injured, dealing with an Achilles injury, but I think they'll manage that correctly so that it's not an issue come playoff time, and they're still waiting to get Chris Middleton back. But I think when you're looking at a team like the Bucks, who they know what they want to do too. Their defense is getting really good. They're towards the top of the defensive rating ever since they went on this win streak. And so I think if they were to play the Bucks in the conference finals, because I think that's what the conference finals is going to be. I think it's going to be Bucks Celtics in the end. You have guys like Dame, Chris, and Giannis, and once they figure out how to execute that late game offense, put the ball in Dame's hands, Dame Giannis pick and roll, Chris Giannis pick and roll, they have more of a late game offense that I would trust, as opposed to the Celtics when games get really, really tight and close, because they love to run Tatum and Brown iso ball. And that usually doesn't work against teams who know how to defend it. And you saw at the end of the game last night, when the Celtics were down by a point, or I think it was, they tried to go to a Jason Tatum. They ran a Jason Tatum ISO. He dribbled out the entire clock and then took a bad contested mid-range fall-away jumper. And they almost bailed him out for it, because they called a foul on Darius Garland. And then they went to the replay, and then they changed it to an offensive foul. Or I don't even think it was an offensive foul. They just said there was no foul, and they did a jump ball at half court, and then the game ended. But it really should have been an offensive foul, because if you look at that replay, Darius Garland barely even touches him. He contests the shot beautifully without fouling, and Tatum is the one who kicks his leg out and makes contact with Darius Garland. So if anything, that should have been an offensive foul on Jason Tatum. And so, yeah, I really just say all that to say, slow down on just crowning the Celtics as the champs, because the playoffs are tough. They're a whole different ball game compared to the regular season. And in the second round, conference finals, and potentially the finals, all those games are going to be close, because they're going to be playing teams that have really good players, really experienced players, and that they aren't going to be afraid of the moment. When you're in the playoffs and you're in a close game like that, you aren't going to be saying, oh, this is the Boston Celtics who had the best record in the league in the regular season. They take and make the most threes, blah, blah, blah. They're going to be saying, we're in a tough matchup against the Celtics. It's a close game, and we're right where we want to be. We are confident that we have guys that can go shot for shot with them. And I think when you look at teams who can do that, I think the Bucks are the biggest threat. So I would still say right now the Celtics are my pick to win the East. They deserve to be considered the favorites still. They've done too much in the regular season, but I'm just saying, watch out for them late in close playoff games in the later rounds, when you have to really, really execute smartly down the stretch, and you can't just do the same thing over and over again, drive and kick threes. So watch out for Boston late in the playoffs. I still think they're going to win the East. As of today, that could change. I don't really know, but yeah, thanks for watching this video. That's really all I wanted to talk about surrounding these two topics. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe for more content, and find the rest of my content linked in the description. Let me know what you guys think about that last topic I just did. Do you have concerns about the Celtics and their late game offense in close playoff games? Like I said, if they get out to a fast start and blow you out, you're not going to beat them, because their confidence is just too high. But if you can really get in their grill and rattle them, make it a slower paced playoff type feel, I think you have them right where you want them if you're the opposing team. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about that. Thanks for watching this video, and make sure to find the rest of my content linked in the description.